Travis Wayne Goodsell. This Thanksgiving weekend, I see that I am being cyber terrorized again. That the perpetrators are not being punished for their severe crimes. There are consequences. And there are those who think that they will not experience the consequences. That they don't either think about it, or they're in a delusional fantasy land that the consequences are going to be beneficial to them. And so when it's not, then they get all upset and claim to be the victim. So, speaking of consequences, those of you who've been following me since just prior to the election, in which I warned you about Trump and the threats that he was making, and afterward with the consequences of those threats by putting certain key people into positions that would make those threats reality. I told you that you needed to know your Trump, that you need to study his works to understand why he's doing what he's doing. That when he pushed the tariffs, the tariffs are going to destroy the economy worldwide. And I warned you that the Book of Mormon is true. Mormons don't believe it. Because Mosiah 29, it warns us about Trump. There are consequences. The consequences are not going to be good for those who voted for Trump. You got used. And you may say that you have not been hurt by Trump yet. Well, it's because he's not in the office yet. Not day one yet. But if you understand the principle of consequences, where the word turns into reality, made flesh, those are consequences. You can see what is coming. And so you can see that Trump purposely is putting those who have been loyal to him in, those who want to do Trump's agenda, and those who will follow Mosiah chapter 29. It's exactly what Trump is doing, to a T. And if you're a Mormon and you voted for Trump, you know about King Noah. You know he's the villain of that particular story. And yet, in your mind, you don't want to accept the consequences. And you disassociate the Book of Mormon story identifying villainous behavior and the exact pattern match with Trump. That makes you evil when you do that. Laban and Lemuel pulled that stunt on Nephi. You claim you love the Book of Mormon and you know all about it, and yet you demonstrate the consequences of being stupid and ignorant about the Book of Mormon and what it teaches. So likewise, I do my videos exposing this church causing you harm, about their corruption, about their lies, about their crimes. And again, you disassociate yourself from the written word of Scripture violated by the leaders of the church. And you get mad at me, and you call me the enemy, and you want me to get hurt. Again, you're denying the consequences. I'm the warning voice messenger, and you are the victim of the church's crimes. And yet you are in denial that you are being hurt. And I've had numerous people over the years who have come out and said, the church does a lot of charity and good works. I've done so many of those kinds of videos from the church news. It's always a business deal for the church. They are incapable of just giving for the sake of making another person's life better, pulling them out of poverty, out of dependence. The church always gives to corporations. And they say, well, we can't trust just giving straight to the people. They might buy porn and drugs. So we have to give it to a charity. Let them decide. And they're making all this contributions in foreign governments, foreign countries. And you don't see that they're all business deals that the church profits from. The vending machines for Christmas. Yeah, they have other charities in the church's vending machines that people can donate to that particular charity. And this year they're helping out Islamic charities that are terrorist organizations against Israel. But you're not understanding the bigger picture of what goes behind the scenes. It's the church's vending machines. They need to pay for them, and so they claim they need to take a cut of the money. And then Nelson, in response to the whistleblower of Ensign Peak Advisors, says, every source of income, we do the exact same pattern and practice with that for Ensign Peak Advisors, for tithing. The source of income takes out 10% to a separate LLC company that invests in the stock market and other ventures, does not spend a single penny. And then the remaining bulk that does not get used for its intended purpose, vending machines, has no intended purpose. It all goes straight to an offshore bank account in a non-extradition country where the United States government can't touch it. Nelson confessed it. And so if you're going to be ignorant about the church news and the news about the church getting busted for SEC violations for the $32 billion from Russia back in 2018, you are the one to blame. You are not paying attention. You are purposely playing dumb to let the church get away with their crimes and abuses, even upon you. But the main thing that nobody gets, who insists that charity is charity regardless of whether the church profits or not from it, is that Heber J. Grant filed articles of incorporation to form the corporation. In 1887, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that was incorporated by Brigham Young in 1852. Oh, he didn't tell us this? Yep, we had to find out from the United States of America that the Incorporated Church of 1852 is now dissolved as a criminal operation. Oh, they didn't tell us about that? We didn't hear it on the news? When did the radio first get invented? Wrong. forced to do upgrades and so on. Again, I am not happy with changes that were made. See, the newspaper, the Deseret News, would never cover this story nationwide of the national news. They kept Mormons in the dark. So the radio was the first time that the nation can hear a similar thing together. When was the radio invented? 1890s. So yeah, after Wilford Woodruff frauded Mormons into believing he was the successor after John Taylor died in prison. Gave official declaration number 1, verse 11. Hilarious. And so the Articles of Incorporation make it very clear that Mormons are no longer involved in any of the decisions of the corporation. He didn't name it the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's the corporation of the president. That's why Irene's leaked paycheck stubs had COP in the upper right-hand corner. That's why my paycheck stubs working for the church at the distribution center and Beyond Clothing back in the day had COP in the upper right-hand corner. I never knew what that meant. Never knew. Church kept it a secret. They let everybody believe they're a religion. They are a fraud. They are a corporation that purposely makes their money off of Mormons. But they say in that Article of Incorporation that the money that they receive is to be used for the Mormons of Brigham Young's dissolved corporation. Church. And so when you see the church flooding the church news with all the church gave to Bolivia, all the church gave to Kenya, all the church gave to China, all the church gave to Russia, all the church gave to such and such. None of that money is going to you, Mormons. The Articles of Incorporation specifically state the money is supposed to be used for you guys. And the church isn't doing it. So not only are these LLC companies in violation of tax law by not being used for charity, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not using the money for you. Yes, they build churches, but their major function is to profit by going worldwide to those who are not Mormon. These are the things you got to pay attention to in order to judge someone by their fruits. Anybody can put off an appearance of goodness and righteousness, but you must see the consequences through. So, this is a comment reply video. Stanford is asking some questions. Keep studying your Egyptian, Stanford. Keep studying. Got some more to learn. He wants to know about how the Egyptian stories are prophecies for the latter days. And so I'll just briefly go over it to explain it a little bit further and try to hopefully help them out with the questions they have. There is no one translation per hieroglyph in Egyptian. To do so is incomplete and inaccurate. And as the one who deciphered the learning of the Egyptians and the language of the Egyptians, because Egyptologists failed, not just by giving one definition per hieroglyph, but also missing a whole bunch of hieroglyphs that need to be translated. There's a whole bunch of translations out there that Egyptologists have neglectfully missed, believing that they got it all and telling the world they got it all. Who's going to know otherwise? Except unless somebody goes into the field of Egyptology. And then they are told, this is everything we know about Egyptology, this is all there is. And then those students believe it. And they perpetuate it. Nonetheless, I'm the one who deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, and that led me, as a consequence, to deciphering the learning of the Egyptians and the language of the Egyptians. And so facsimile number 2, for example, the general frame of it, not looking at what's inside of it, you have an annular eclipse. You have the Eye of Horus, you have the woman's womb, and many other things that are involved just with that one hieroglyph of the circular hypocephalus. There's volumes of knowledge contained in a single hieroglyph. So, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Probably even more for a single hieroglyph. Because, for example, if you were to take the scarab beetle, if you were to see that in an Egyptian hieroglyph, you, as an Egyptian, have a basic knowledge of a scarab beetle. You know what it is as it a crustacean? Whatever it is. And what it does with its day. How it behaves, how it acts. And you would know that it pushes dung across the desert sands. And the dung gets covered up with sand, and it mimics the rolling of the sun across the heavens. And that's why the Egyptians used the scarab beetle to hold up the sun or to be pushing the sun across the sky, because of the behavior of a scarab beetle. And so all that information is contained within a scarab beetle and a sun hieroglyph. And so what it eats also is involved, how it performs, and all that. And so when you combine them with other hieroglyphs, it compounds the amount of information that needs to be output from the hieroglyphs in translation. So understand that first and foremost. And so the Latter Days battle of prophesied from the Egyptians of Horus being murdered by his brother Set, and then the conception and birth of Horus, who goes back to restore the throne of his father, is where the Jews plagiarized it to tell the prophecies of the future Jewish Christ, as Joseph Smith is Osiris, who was murdered by his fellow brother, who usurped his church. And then through that church will come Horus to restore Joseph Smith's church. Exact same pattern. That's what Joseph Smith is talking about. That's what the Jews are talking about. Only Christians screw it up. And so at the beginning of the battle, you have Set wounding the right eye of Horus. He would later go on to also wound the left eye. The movie version of it takes out both eyes at once, if I remember. It's been a while since I've seen it. And so that's Hollywood liberties. Don't trust Hollywood movies for your knowledge of historical events, and especially don't watch the Ten Commandments or even the Batman version of the Exodus, Gods and Kings, whatever his name was. This is assisting Christianity with the first creed that turned the Jewish scriptures of prophecy and revelation into literal history. And then Hollywood then made movies to reinforce the all wrong, abominable, and corruption of the first creed of Christianity. Joseph Smith history, first vision, verse 19. Every Mormon should know this. There are certain things that Mormons should all know factually, so that if anything goes up against it, they can know that the consequences of that word is falsehood. And so the eyes of Horus are the Egyptian word for seer. And obviously there are more things involved with it, involving the concept of seership. To be able to have visions and dreams that come into your mind to help further explain the single word of seer. So every single one of you should know about how our eyes see the physical reality, but in this concept of a seer, it's more than that. It's being able to take what we see physically and then turn it into dream interpretation for future prophecy and day and hour revelation. So it's a whole big process involved with the simple word of seer from the Egyptians. And Horus is that Christ figure of the Egyptians. It is his eyes. And so when you go through the scriptures, there are 829 passages for eye. I'll go to my favorite one that I selected for my mission plaque that my dad threw away. There are only 14. Matthew 6:22, the light of the body is the eye. Light and intelligence. Seership. Luke 11:34, light of the body is the eye. Plagiarizing Matthew. 3 Nephi 13, the light of the body is the eye. If thine eye be single, I'm getting cyber terrorized again. See, the Mormon who's attacking me does not understand that he is proving the church is false. He is not listening to my recording. He just is able to get a signal that I'm recording. Because the last time I reported him to the FBI, he stopped. And now, being the Thanksgiving Day weekend, where the FBI can't step in and say, no, do that, he's back at it again. Full force this weekend. And you don't see the times where he's doing it, because it was during my journal vlogs that he was been mostly doing it. This was the first time doing a video for you that it happened. But continuing on with the rest of the sentence, if thine eye be the single, thy whole body shall be full of light. So these people who commit crimes are not full of light. They're not getting inspired by God. They're not being good. There are consequences. Even if they're not direct consequences, there are indirect consequences. And so this person is not just doing it to me, he's doing it to other people in his life. And one day he'll come across another person who's not going to be incapable of defending himself as I am. And so you're hearing a lot of those kinds of situations in the news, of people who've been able to get away with stuff, and then all of a sudden they cross the line with the wrong person, and now they're going to prison, or they're dead or wounded. And so, yeah, light that comes from the sun and the moon. And so the two eyes of Horus. And for the Egyptians, the two eyes of Horus have this added meaning, that the right eye is for government and for the sun, which is represented by Emmanuel, the sun god, Amen. And then the left eye is religion and thought, which is David in Paleo-Hebrew transliteration. And so right eye is also for husband or male, female, wife, mother, father. So lots of different translations from just the single eyes of Horus. And so when the eyes are wounded in the story of the battle to restore the throne, it's referring to not just a collapse of the king, or the death of a king, or the collapse of a kingdom, or the ending of a kingdom and the starting of a new one, but it's also a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse. And this is why I told you in the video that Stanford is asking about to pay attention to your Jewish and Egyptian calendars. You probably don't know how to obtain access to Egyptian calendars on Amazon. Yes, I have new props in the background if you hadn't noticed. I pulled them out because 2024 was on top. I had to get to 2017 for you. It's necessary to study the scriptures of Joseph Smith, Book of Mormon, and especially the Bible, from which the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith are deriving theirs from, which the Jews are deriving theirs from the Egyptians. And there's a passage 1 Nephi chapter 19. And the God of our fathers, who were led out of Egypt, out of bondage, and also were preserved in the wilderness by him, yea, the God of Abraham, and of Isaac, and of Jacob, yieldeth himself according to the words of an angel, messenger, as a man into the hands of wicked men, to be lifted up according to the words of Zenoch, and to be crucified according to the words of Neam, and to be buried in a sepulchre according to the words of Zenos, which he spake concerning the 3 days of darkness, which should be a sign given of his death. But days of darkness has to do with the sun no longer giving its light. See how understanding Egyptian helps you with this? I found all of these in the Egyptian documents. I told that to my Elders Quorum president in West Valley City. He just stood there with his mouth open, didn't know what to say, didn't move, and I'm just going, okay, now what? Is he in shock? What's going on in his head? Nothing was said about it ever again. I guess he didn't believe me. But the Book of Mormon is true. It's from Egyptian documents. Did he not believe it? Did you know? Language of the Egyptians. It's the obvious thing. So in Mosiah chapter 1 verse 4, for were it not possible that our father Lehi could have remembered all these things to have taught them to his children, except it were for the help of these brass plates? For he, having been taught in the language of the Egyptians, therefore he could read these engravings. I'm surprised the apologist hadn't figured this out. And teach them to his children, whereby they could teach them to their children, and so fulfilling the commandments of God, even down to the present time. So, the Egyptian calendars. Joseph Smith's visionary accounts, specifically the second vision, in which that first night corresponds with Jewish calendar, as well as getting the plates in 1827. Pay attention to the Jewish calendar. And if you need that site repeated for you again, hold on here. Was it this year or last year when Google search forbid the viewing of the Jewish calendar site on Easter? It was just so hateful. CGSF.org/DBEATTIE calendar /. And it'll say it's not secure, but that's stupid. It's a Google thing requirement. You gotta pay Google tribute in order to get it secured. It's stupid. And you'll see the Hebrew on the left side and Roman on the right side. And you'll see the current year up at the top, 2024. And so then you can change the year directly. You can put in the Hebrew year if you want. Or you can click the previous year or the next year. Go back and forth in time. See into the future. See into the past. SEER. See into the present. Talked about in the Book of Mormon. And so I find this guy, and I get his 2017 calendar, and I saw today, I was checking, I was going to do the video, and so I checked to see if 2025 has come out yet, and it hasn't, but I see that he had republished 2024. If you remember me doing videos last year, I had told you that I had found it, and then I went back to check on it to get a picture, and it was, I don't think I ever got that picture. It's now available. Just occurred to me, better take this opportunity, because now he's got 2024 as his main thing on his page on Amazon. And so yeah, let's make sure we get this. And 2017's also 18, 23, 21, 20, 17. Here we go. I wanted so desperately to get the full latter days, and seeing how Hanukkah is carrying over into 2025, I'm gonna need to get Hanukkah as well, or get 2025s as well. So I began looking over it to see how he did it, and it's full Egyptian. He does not put any kind of other religion bias in there. He gets these from the actual Egyptian documents for the specific days of the year. And so there is no Christian Jesus in here, no Jewish Christ for that matter either, or Islamic Christ, Allah. And so I went to 21st of August 2017, and lo and behold, to my wondering eyes did appear, but it's New Year for the Egyptians, when the solar eclipse begins the latter days. I was doing a big ol' happy dance for that. Do you understand what this means? I had already confirmed it from the Bible. I'd already confirmed it with astronomy, with the signs in the heavens. And here is yet another separate, distinct test adding to the confirmation of fact that that was the prophesied date for not only Revelation, Samson, and others, but also of the Egyptians, also of Joseph Smith, even the Book of Mormon, the 3 days of darkness. And there it is, the Egyptian religious calendar New Year, from an independent source, adding to the other sources that have already been confirmed. It only takes 3 to establish truth from confirmation. And if you can keep repeating it, you've got eternal law. And this is why it is so sad that despite all that I have done with these 8.2K videos for you, all the pictures that I've made trying to help you learn, to help Mormons see that it is true, as Jewish, as Egyptian, not as Christian. And Mormons are still hardening their hearts. The Egyptians prophesied of that day, which was Monson's birthday. For which he would soon thereafter die, on Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. The stars falling from the tail of Draco the dragon, quadranted meteor showers. For Mormons to say that all the scriptures are true, but then say they have no connection with the church, is a disconnect of evil. They are denying the consequences. They are denying the word. They have turned the word Christian, which is darkness. Joseph Smith expands upon that in the Doctrine and Covenants. In section 123, verse 7, it is an imperative duty that we owe to God, to angels with whom we shall be brought to stand, and also to ourselves, to our wives and children, who have been made to bow down with grief, sorrow, and care under the most damning hand of murder, tyranny, and oppression, supported and urged on and upheld by the influence of that spirit which hath so strongly riveted the creeds of the fathers, who have inherited lies upon the hearts of the children, and filled the world with confusion, and has been growing stronger and stronger, and is now the very mainstream of all corruption, and the whole earth groans under the weight of its iniquity. It is an iron yoke. It is a strong band. They are the very handcuffs and chains and shackles and fetters of hell. Therefore, it is an imperative duty that we owe not only to our wives and children, but to the widows and fatherless whose husbands and fathers have been murdered under its iron hand, which, thank you very much, dark and blackening deeds are enough to make hell itself shudder and to stand aghast and pale, and the hands of the very devil to tremble and palsy. He keeps going on. Only 2 passages, Doctrine and Covenants and verse 19. Christianity. Okay, so yes, I knew that eclipse was the end of the United States, that we were finally in the latter days that I'd been studying my whole life to learn about. And I then came to realize that my pursuit to know translation, to find out if Joseph Smith was true, would tie in with the latter days. As Joseph Smith himself, I can expound all scriptures into one, take up hours of time. We're already at 50 minutes, I think. Revelation chapter 12, Joseph Smith translation. And there appeared a great sign in heaven. That's the day and the hour of Revelation. In the likeness of things on the earth. That's the prophecy. The sign in the heaven was the first day of darkness, for the 3 days of darkness over the United States of America, for the fall of America. This is why I warn you about Trump. This is why I warn you about the church that claims to be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the great and abominable church. Mormons refuse to get it. They believe the scriptures, they believe the Book of Mormon, they believe Joseph Smith, but not if it condemns and vilifies Nelson and the church. There's a disconnect. Mormons are not willing to accept the consequences. If the word is true, the church is false. Mormons cannot accept that. The word has to be changed and altered, as Joseph Smith said Christianity does. And the consequences makes even the devil himself to fear and tremble.